click. And I think we are on. So, welcome to the ZioBros podcast, where Ellie, my co host, and I are going to discuss topics on the news, especially pertaining to American politics, Israel, geopolitics, and even religion to a lesser degree. First and foremost, let's introduce ourselves. Who are we? Ellie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Eli Merlis. I'm an intelligence analyst with a background in the Middle East. Um, Currently, I work in the private sector doing intelligence analysis, and I'm excited to get to have some conversations with my old buddy Asaf about all the topics that he mentioned and more. How you doing, Asaf?
Amazing. Thank you very much for your introduction. Um, my background is kind of similar. I also engaged or used to work a little bit in intel analysis, mostly focusing on the Middle East. Currently, I'm in the academia, we can say, but I'm still very passionate about that field, and that kind of led us both to engage and spread our ideas and discuss our ideas outside of our regular phone calls, where we mostly vent.
That's right. We do a lot of venting where we get a little
Yes,
frustrated sometimes with the state of the world and our country.
exactly. Unfortunately, that's the reality we live in.
Yes.
Um, so, why have we decided to launch this podcast? Um, Over the past couple of years, I think we've noticed this pretty disturbing trend of disinformation, misinformation, lies, and deception coming from all sides, coming from the far left, far right, Goipers, Islamists, and other malign elements. Um, with this very big psyop campaign against the state of Israel and Jews broadly. Um, so we came to a conclusion where maybe we should do something and just talk about these issues, try and expose some of the lies, analyze different events more professionally and not emotionally, like some of those who on the other side would have. And yeah, and that's why we started it. Ellie, do you want to add something?
Yeah, sure. I think that we're going to have some very interesting conversations. Um, we have quite a few years of experience under our belt dealing with these matters professionally, and also between each other. And with all the noise that's out there, I think it's very important for us to cut to the core of the matter, and to try to approach the discussion points in a sober, unbiased sort of manner. And of course, I'm speaking specifically about American politics, politics of the geopolitics of the Middle East, um, the currents that we're seeing in our society. Asaf, you mentioned the far left and the far right, different elements of it. I would also add the DSA, the
Mhm.
Democratic Socialists of America, who are experiencing some sort of ascension in the American political sphere. So um, I think we're doing this podcast to try to bring to our audience an outlook that is much clearer and is much less sort of performance based
Right. That's a
and
good
more
word.
facts based. I think that's what you and I like to stick to.
Right. And of course, as the name of the podcast suggests, we do have our biases, but we want to show that um, despite our biases, the truth is, for the most part, is on our side. I think this is something that we still want to stress out, and we're gonna go over. And different sources, data, um, just to demonstrate that as clearly as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So, Ellie, should we delve into it?
Let's
What
do
do you
it.
think? Okay. So, the first topic that we want to introduce today is the highly controversial Memorandum of Understanding between the US and Iran that was signed a couple of weeks ago. I would like to go over each clause and analyze it and show whether or not this agreement is a good agreement, as someone like the vice president would claim it is, or whether or not it's a flawed agreement that maybe should be revisited. Are you ready, Ellie?
I'm ready for that.
Okay, let's take a look. Okay.
I can see.
Okay. Now that it's on, let us go over the different clauses of the agreement and let's see what are the ramification of each clause and how does it correspond with reality on the ground. Okay. Um, so I'll read the first one and then we can try and analyze it and see what stands behind it and is it really realistic to actually put such a clause in an agreement. Okay, so the first clause stipulates that the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran and their allies in the current war are signing this MOU to declare the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon, and undertake from now on not to initiate any war or any military operation against each other, and to refrain from the threat or use of force against each other and ensure the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Lebanon. The final deal will confirm the permanent termination of the war on all fronts, including in Lebanon and other provisions of this paragraph. Okay. So what are your thoughts, Ellie?
Well,
this is obviously focusing on Lebanon for the most part, but let's see.
yeah, it does mention Lebanon several times. And I think it's pretty obvious that the reason why it's even included at all is because the Iranians wanted it to be. Instead of the word Lebanon, at least for some of the times that Lebanon is mentioned, Hezbollah, the Lebanese, Iran's Lebanese militant proxy, some would say terrorist proxy, I would. You can just substitute their name for Lebanon. So even though, of course, Hezbollah is backed by Iran, this war was fought mostly in the Gulf. Yes, Iran did launch during the war that commenced on February 28th. Iran launched multiple ballistic missiles at Israel, and in some cases to devastating effect. But for the most part, this war was fought in the Gulf. It was fought in the Gulf region. The inclusion of a country that's in the far western Levant as part of this ceasefire, which was, by the way, negotiated between the U.S. and Iran. Israel was not involved. Israel was not a part of these negotiations.
Right.
So the fact that Lebanon is included here, to me, is really suspicious and really speaks to the desperation, I would call it, that the White House was feeling just to reach a deal. That they relented and they gave in to the IRGC's reported demand that Lebanon, or Hezbollah, would also receive some type of protection under this deal between the U.S. and Iran. So that is not good. It is not good that Hezbollah, which has a lot of not only Israeli blood and Jewish blood, but American blood on its hands, should receive some type of
Lebanese blood, even.
Not to mention, thank you. No, that's very important. Not to mention Lebanese blood. Would receive some kind of protection from de facto, even from the United States government. And clearly, the Iranians, if we look at this clause here, at this point here, the Iranians were looking to have the Americans tie Israel's hands in defending itself against Hezbollah. Those are those are my thoughts so far on this first point.
Right. Those are all strong points. I would add a couple of things. That first of all, it says, as you mentioned, it says cessation of all hostilities. And then Iran, during the negotiations or the current negotiations after the signing of the MOU, kept complaining that Israel is violating it, or they're not going to negotiate because there are no full cease of hostilities. The problem is that Hezbollah are the ones who actually breached all the ceasefire and violated it, and then Iran goes back, and when Israel responds and says, "Okay, we cannot continue negotiating," so it's already it's a problem. It's a big problem. I will say though something that is very interesting that just happened since then, that actually tilts, I guess, this clause a little bit away from it being a terrible clause to slightly less bad, is the recent framework agreement between Israel and Lebanon, brokered by Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, obviously, that basically legitimized Israel's stay in Lebanon without fully withdrawing, like Hezbollah and Iran demand and claim that this clause states. So since the US brokered this framework agreement, obviously their point now of Iran is bunk. They cannot really use that point anymore. And interestingly, they keep claiming that they want to protect the integrity and sovereignty of Lebanon. But obviously, as Eli said, they mean Hezbollah because the sovereign state of Lebanon actually signed that agreement with Israel. So clearly, that was an attempt to defend Hezbollah, which, interestingly, the actual state of Lebanon is aligned with Israel at this point against Hezbollah, which I think is an interesting point. So at least we see some undermining or a wrench into Iran's narrative or attempts to spin this first clause as pushing for full withdrawal by Israel away from Lebanon. So, yeah. Do you want to add something about that, Eli?
Well, yeah, of course, Asaf, that deal reached between Israel and Lebanon, which was mediated by Secretary of State Rubio, is really, really important to mention. Of course, if we're talking about sovereignty, violation of sovereignty, Hezbollah's very existence is a violation of Lebanese sovereignty. There's no question about that. But we'll see if that deal counteracts this U.S.-Iran deal in any way, or if it adds to it. We're going to have to see the sort of if there's any type of interplay between the deal reached between Beirut and Jerusalem and the deal reached between Washington and Tehran. But that's it's definitely important to mention that deal. And clearly, by the way, Iran is very much and Hezbollah are obviously very opposed to it.
Oh, they're so upset.
Right, very upset to the point where they had those Iran and Hezbollah sent out their street thugs, street toughs to light fires and ride around on motorcycles carrying Hezbollah flags in Beirut and other urban centers of Lebanon to show their displeasure with this deal. If they're showing displeasure, it means it's bad for them. That means it's good for America and it's good for Israel.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Wasn't also an attempt by J.D. Vance to somewhat like bandwagon on the deal?
There was. It seems that there was, given the statement that he made in the past 24 hours. I'm paraphrasing. about how the deals could sort of work with each other, and he's clearly trying to, or it seems that he's trying to derive some type of benefit from a deal that wasn't negotiated by him, that was negotiated by his chief rival, for now his chief rival for 2028, as opposed to the one that he is negotiating, that he sort of negotiated and is the basis for his negotiations, that is basically a stinker, is seen as a stinker in general by most parties. And I haven't seen the polling data, but I wouldn't be surprised if the American public, if it were polled, wouldn't think that this MOU in general, taken as a whole, would be is positive for U.S. interests.
Right.
So that is also an important development for sure.
I haven't seen polling as well between those two. However, I do see a trend the past few weeks of Rubio actually catching up. Vance used to lead by 30 or 40 points. I think now it's like a single on aggregate in terms of polls. I think now it's in the single digit or even less. So in some polls, they're even tied or even Rubio leads. So I think it's pretty much an open thing, open race. And interestingly, I checked the two betting markets, Polymarket and Kalshi. In Kalshi, Rubio leads by a little bit, and in Polymarket, Vance leads by a little bit. And the race for the next nominee for the Republican Party or Republican Party candidate for the 2028 presidency. Okay.
That is very interesting.
Do we want to move on to the next clause?
Yeah, we can move on.
Okay, awesome. Give me 1 second. I'll let the dogs out.
Sure.
Okay.
Welcome back to 2000. Who let the dogs out?
Yes. Okay. One left. The other one want to stay with us. Okay.
He or she is more than welcome.
Yes.
We love dogs and animals on this program.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we do. We do. We love dogs. Okay. I'll read the second one. The United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran undertake to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity and to refrain from interfering in each other's internal affairs. A very interesting point. A little bit ironic, I would say, since the regime for decades, including now, intervenes in social media, in academia, through their front groups like the Nayak, right? That's their name, if I'm not wrong. Nayak.
Mayak.
The IRGC think tank in the United States.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with that one, but it has some kind of IRGC linkage or some kind of
and it kind of pushes through different Congress people and candidates, the Islamic Republic's narrative. Someone said APAC, I don't know. And don't catch me on it. Maybe it should be fact checked, but I'm pretty sure one of these groups actually even funded or helped funding Thomas Massey's campaign. Interesting.
Really?
Again, yeah.
Wow.
So this is one. Of course, the different cells within the United States that they operate, donations to academic programs through different means or different countries, and so on and so forth. So
also the criminals who they hire to carry out assassinations.
Oh yes, that's true.
As was the case with Masih Ali-Nejad in Brooklyn, who was saved not long before that Iranian assassination plan several years ago was set to be put into motion. And of course,
the Trump attempted assassination.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
That Pakistani guy.
Yep. That's it. That is definitely an interference. And by the way, the interference is likely to continue.
Of course. So I think it's too funny to actually go over this point. I think we can just move on.
What's Iran saying? No, you don't kill the next supreme leader. Is that what they? I mean, what are they? You know.
Maybe that's what they mean, but
Yeah.
it says each other's, but
Right.
but okay. Let's see. Let's move on. Okay, let's look at number 3.
Hmm.
Okay, let's look at number 3. The United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran commit to negotiating and achieving the final deal in maximum 60 days, extendable with mutual consent. Okay, what's your take, Ellie, on that one?
Well, any final deal, uh, at least according to the Trump administration, that would be negotiated over these 60 days would involve the most contentious issues, including Iran's nuclear program, nuclear weapons program, um, and it's the unfreezing of its assets, um, and more. I don't think that its support of proxies or ballistic missile program is going to be included, which I'm sure not only is Israel not happy about, to say the least, to put it one way, but the Iran's Gulf Arab neighbors are certainly not happy about that either. So there's a question as to how meaningful these 60 days will be, because what we've seen so far in the several weeks since the MOU was reached, right? The MOU is not, it's not a deal, it's not an agreement, it's just
Right,
an understanding, right? General understanding of
right,
principles, right? Important distinction, I think. Um, so what has happened over the first portion of these 60 days? We've seen mutual threats to withdraw from the negotiations, including as recently as today.
right,
And we have even seen strike exchanges, of course, initiated by Iran.
right. It's
So,
important to emphasize because as part of this disinformation campaign over the past couple of years, it started with Israel, but I've noticed also when it comes to the US and this war with Iran, there's a lot of lies about who started, including some mainstream media outlets that would just portray certain developments as like US initiated, but they never, not never, but they downplay who initiated the actual attacks and sometimes just ignore it or just put it like at the back or the bottom of the article. So I think it's an important point.
absolutely, absolutely, it is, and this is one of the reasons of why we've started this podcast
Right,
to try to approach also the news, not just events, but the coverage of the events, and to examine it,
right,
try to get to the core of what actually is happening. So, look, in my humble opinion, there's a significant chance that these 60 days are going to be uh, extended,
right,
because, like I said, the thorniest issues, including the nuclear program, are the ones that are set to be negotiated upon. It has taken years to negotiate these issues, and no, at least conclusive agreement has been reached, unless you we consider the 2015 nuclear deal
right,
one of those. But I mean, it's good. It's all the biggest points of contention between Iran and the U.S. are not going to be negotiated. I don't think within the next let's say month and a half at this point. So that's they're basically saying, hey, we're going to negotiate over the next 60 days, and maybe we'll extend the negotiation period.
yeah. I get a gut feeling that yes, it's going to be extended, and a lot of it is um, related to the midterms. Um, that Trump just wanted to stop the war at least until the midterms and postponed as much as possible. Maybe I'm wrong about it, but that's just a hunch I have.
That makes sense.
At least until the midterms, and then maybe can escalate his rhetoric and even the military threats or even strikes in order to achieve a better deal. He is aware that the American public is impatient, um, and fell into this never-ending or endless wars narrative, which is a lot of criticism um, to deliver against it. But as we both know, it's a very short-sighted view. But I think that Trump might be just trying to um, win some time for the next few months. I think one little hint that I kind of got about it um, was today. Was it today or yesterday? I don't remember. That he really freaked out about them keep blocking the Strait of Hormuz because I think that was the main thing that he wanted in order to allow the oil to like flow again. But um, they're still making it difficult by blocking it and targeting ships, and he got really upset at it.
Yeah.
I think it might be an indication that it's just temporarily, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
I would agree with that. It's sort of like maybe a permanent, a temporary stopgap that will allow the global economy to recover somewhat from the war, which would have to include the flow of maritime oil and gas through the Strait of Hormuz. But the Strait of Hormuz, as we've seen in recent days, not actually open, thanks to the Iranians.
Right.
Their demand that they will be the
Yes.
administrators
We
of
will get to that.
in Oman too. But we'll get to that, sure.
Yes, it's
I'm
one of
I'm
these,
with you.
one of the clauses
Yeah.
involve that. Okay, so let's read number 4. Okay. Okay. Immediately upon the signing of this MOU, the United States of America will begin the removal of its naval blockade and any disturbances or impediments against the Islamic Republic of Iran, and will fully end the naval blockade within 30 days. During this period, the traffic of vessels will be in proportion to the numbers of pre-war traffic being restored by the Islamic Republic of Iran. The United States of America further undertakes to remove its forces from the proximity of the Islamic Republic of Iran within 30 days after the final deal. Okay, so what are your thoughts about this point?
Well, I'm looking at the sentence here that says during this period, the traffic of vessels will be in proportion to the numbers of pre-war traffic being restored by the Islamic Republic of Iran, and all of this seems to be contingent on the so-called Hormuz for Hormuz part of the deal, where the U.S. Removes incrementally its blockade of Iran's southern ports, and Iran stops attacking shipping. But which is how it of course controls traffic in the Strait of Hormuz through drone attacks and other means of force, through threats as well. And so far, I mean, this doesn't seem very tenable. I mean, we have seen some type of relative increase of ships in the past week and a half or so since this MOU was signed. We have seen some kind of uptick in maritime traffic, but we've also seen Iran continuing to demand that the Strait of Hormuz be under its purview, even if they're not charging tolls, and maybe we'll get to that later. Tolls right now, or service fees, or whatever they'd like to call them, whether or not, right? I mean, a service for what? It's like
It's such
protection,
a racketing.
right? Protection, right? The mafia, right?
It's
Exactly.
like the mafia, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is how the regime operates. It's very mafia-like. So when we saw as recently as at least within the past 48 hours, when a ship goes or ships go beyond the designated route, the route that Iran has designated through the choke point, then they will open fire. They open fire on the vessels. And the U.S., if the U.S. doesn't respond militarily, which it does, which it has been doing, then it means that it is acceding to Iran's demand that it be the authority over the Gulf. Sorry, over the Strait of Hormuz, even though it's supposedly not charging tolls at the moment.
Yeah.
So you know, someone could read this and say, "Oh yeah, okay, this means that the Strait of Hormuz will reopen as long as, you know, uh, the U.S. Ends its blockade incrementally of southern Iran's ports, and Iran stops firing at ships. But Iran's not stopping its firing at ships. So the kind of even if we're at a lower intensity of the kinds of strikes that we have seen basically since February 28th, um, I read this and I say, all right, well, the Strait of Hormuz is still not open, not really open. So this far from settled, the Strait of Hormuz issue.
Right. So bottom line, saying that the traffic, maritime traffic of vessels is in proportion to the numbers of pre-war traffic is being restored is not what is going on, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so for that we have this.
That means okay. I like the sound effects.
Yes.
Podcasts don't have enough sound effects. I'm
Yeah.
like, we've got a soundboard. I didn't know this is a great surprise.
Yeah.
So add a little bit of levity because we're talking about
just playing around with this new software. Trying to make myself look not technophobic.
You're doing great so far. I need to
Thank you.
I need
Yes.
to catch up to you.
Yeah. Okay. Next point. I'll start reading that up. Point number 5. Okay. Upon the signing of this MOU, the Islamic Republic of Iran will make arrangements using its best efforts. It's already funny, using its best efforts for the safe passage of commercial vessels with no charge. I have a hard time reading that with a straight face, I have to say. For 60 days only, from the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman and vice versa. The traffic of commercial vessels will immediately start, and considering the need for removing the technical and military obstacles, and demining by the Islamic Republic of Iran will be instead within 30 days. The Islamic Republic of Iran will conduct dialogue with the Sultanate of Oman to define the future administration and maritime services in the Strait of Hormuz, in discussions with other Persian Gulf littoral states, in line with the applicable international law and the sovereign rights of coastal states of the Strait of Hormuz. This is an extremely problematic clause for many points. First of all, you rely on their best efforts. Second of all, correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't really demine anything, not that I've seen.
Iran is demanding, as recently as France said that it wants to take part in the demining. As recently as today, Iran said, no, only we get to demine, meaning they'll probably leave some.
Of course. And third, which I think is the most troubling, it actually goes against the Western-led or American-led or liberal-led international world order of free maritime shipping and movement, because it implies very strongly that Iran, maybe Oman too, but Iran mostly, is the one that should administrate or supposed to administrate the Strait of Hormuz, which goes against the UN Charter for Sea. I don't remember exactly the name, but there's a specific charter. It's a charter for like the sea movement of sea and shipping and something like that. But anyway, it forbids any country of taking over these maritime routes. So that's a clear violation of it.
It is. This paragraph here is so loaded.
Yeah.
First of all, Oman itself, we know that the Trump administration has been very frustrated with Oman in particular, calling it basically calling its actions double dealing. with the
Mhm.
Iranians. Um, Oman, in this case, it would be, yeah, okay, maybe they would cash in too on tolls. Oman is nothing more than a fig leaf for the
Right.
Iranian attempt to control the Strait of Hormuz. So the Iranians said, "Oh, it's not just us; it's Oman too, right? It's international." No, I mean this is ridiculous. This is a ridiculous sort of like I mentioned, fig leaf. Um, so
Yep.
and to the best of their efforts, basically, we'll try not to shoot at ships. We'll try not to pull the trigger. We'll try not to kill innocent mariners.
Right.
We'll try
Look,
not to kill them.
I know it's a hard ask, but you know, I know it's hard not to kill innocent mariners, but please do it.
Yeah, it's hard when you're a regime of this nature.
Yep.
So I mean, looking at point number 5, we can connect it, of course, with point number 4. I mean,
Yeah.
this is setting the stage. I look at this. I look at number 5. I see this is setting the stage for the Iranians to administer the Strait of Hormuz and to charge tolls, and maybe
Right.
Oman gets thrown a bone. But again, it's not about Oman getting paid. It's more about Oman being some sort of like giving like some sort of like veil of legitimacy to Iran's illegal, as you explained a moment ago, just illegal actions.
Right.
You know.
I'm just checking the name of the charter. Now it will bother me if I won't do that. In charter of freedom of seas. Okay. Let's see. ChatGPT is a bit slow right now.
Okay.
But that's okay. Well, we can continue until.
We'll get it.
Yeah. Okay. Point number 6. Okay. The United States of America undertakes with regional partners to develop a definitive, mutually agreed plan with at least 300 billion US dollars for the reconstruction and economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The mechanism for the implementation of this plan will be finalized as part of a final deal within 60 days. All required licenses, waivers, and permissions needed for the relevant financial transactions will be granted by the United States. It's like each clause is funnier than the previous one. I'll put it that way. I'll use the word funny. We already seen, is it a viable clause or not? Probably not. We already seen the Gulf states refusing to do that. Maybe Qatar will be on board, but even them, I doubt it. But definitely the other ones don't seem to be really into this idea, because this economic development plan, it doesn't say it here, but it's supposed to fall on the Gulf countries. So I don't see that. Another point I think is, morally speaking, if we open that can of worms, okay, why stop with Iran, with the Islamic Republic itself and the damage it incurred during the war? What about Bahrain? What about Kuwait? What about Oman? What about the UAE and Saudi Arabia, the damage that Iran caused them throughout the war and throughout the years? What about Syria and Iraq and Yemen and Lebanon and Israel, all those countries that were targeted by the regime, whether through proxies or ballistic missiles or drones? They can claim too that money from, maybe the regimes should recompensate these countries for the damage that it caused over the past few decades. So that's my initial take.
I hadn't even thought about that. I hadn't even thought of that principle. Um, yeah, I mean, why is Iran the only victim here? What about all of it, even going back before February 28th, and everything that Iran did to other regional countries, perpetrated against other regional countries before this latest war commenced on February 28th? Iran opened fire on all of its neighbors, all
Right.
of them, and in some cases really, really damaged them. why is Iran the only country that will receive some sort of financial relief? And I'll tell you another thing. If let's say Bahrain and the UAE and some of these other countries, they got some money for reconstruction, they would use it to reconstruct their damaged infrastructure and other important needs that need to be addressed. We know what Iran will do with the money because we know that they don't care
Of
about their own
course.
people. They will use it for their ballistic missile program and to support their proxies. That is what they will do. So this is really, Asaf, some people who have been quoted, some people, some officials, some Israeli officials, and also American members of the U.S. government, well, of Congress specifically, who have been quoted in reports, have said that this might be the worst part. That this actually might be the worst part of the
Yeah.
MOU for American interests,
Yeah.
and for
Yeah.
Israeli
I can
interests.
see that. I can see
Yeah,
that. I think it's definitely morally the most questionable clause morally.
yeah, yeah, for
It's,
sure.
I mean, forgive me for my harsh language, but it's a true abomination.
It is. And as I
Uh,
think we've talked about offline and stuff, that's what might make this MOU or at least parts of the MOU worse than worse than the 2015 nuclear deal.
and we'll get to that. Yes, we'll get to that deal. We'll get to that deal, and especially the part, the very important part about discussing the nuclear situation. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
We can definitely not call it an agreement, so
Mm-hmm.
we'll get to it. By the way, before we move on, I found the name of the charter. It's a convention. So it's the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea.
Okay.
And this is where, right of navigation, innocent passage, transit passage, like freedom of movement and all that stuff. Anyhow, just, wanted to source that out. Okay,
Thanks for doing that. Thanks for looking that up. I'll check it out.
yeah. Okay, let's look at number 7. The United States of America undertakes to terminate all types of sanctions against the Islamic Republic of Iran, including the United Nations Security Council's resolutions, IAEA Board of Governors resolutions, and all unilateral U.S. sanctions, primary and secondary, in an agreed upon schedule as part of the final deal. The Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States of America acknowledge the critical importance of the sanctions termination issue above mentioned and express their intentions to immediately address these issues in the negotiations in order to achieve mutual agreement on them. Okay. So what is so bad about this one?
Well, it seems, just from reading this, it seems like Iran is going to get some type of sweeping sanctions relief, and it's going to be legitimized by the United Nations Security Council and other UN institutions such as the IAEA leadership. I mean, we the United States have slapped and kept sanctions on the Islamic regime in Tehran since 1979, and now all of a sudden, even if it happens in stages, this MOU or is going to grant them this type of relief. What did they do to earn this relief? Like
exactly, that's the main point. Yeah.
Right. What did they do?
They don't give anything in return. That's so far, at least. I don't really see anything in return. So at most, even if we're extremely charitable to the previous clause of them allowing maritime shipping to go back, and that was the situation before the war. So they actually don't really give anything. So why would they get anything? Which, again, very troubling once again. Interestingly, though, the salvation might actually come from an unexpected source when it comes to this clause.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about, maybe?
I'm not sure.
Okay, France actually came out and said, we're going to veto that in the Security Council if they're going to remove all the sanctions without any limitation on the nuclear agreement or nuclear program.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, of all countries, that might be, um, you know,
Macron showing some guts. Imagine, but that is a sad. I mean, I'm glad to hear that.
yeah,
But that's also a sad commentary
yeah,
because just from an American standpoint, I mean, like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? This is just that France would have to come in and veto some type of deal that was negotiated by the United States that would grant Iran so much for nothing.
right.
You know? So
Okay.
I'm honestly, before we move on to the next piece here, for the most part, just reading through this, it looks like it was written by Iran. It looks like it was
You
right.
just,
It was written by Foreign Minister Abbas
yeah.
Araghchi and signed off on by Ghalibaf and these other pricks. I mean, I really just I don't feel like I'm reading a document that was written even in part by the United States.
Right, or negotiated at all. Like it was just like,
Right.
here's a paper, just sign on it.
That's exactly like they gave the United States, they gave the Iranians gave the Americans something that okay, they might sign this. They might and the US said, well, we want the war to end so badly for some of the reasons you mentioned earlier, Asaf, the political interests of the Trump administration and maybe other reasons. All right, so yeah, we can work with this. This is an Iranian written document.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's yeah. I'll stop here before I say harsher words. So
Okay.
okay, so let's go move on to number 8. Let's see what point 8 says. Okay. Uh, Islamic Republic of Iran reaffirms that it shall not procure or develop nuclear weapons. The United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran have agreed to resolve the disposition of stockpiled enriched material pursuant to a mechanism that will be mutually agreed upon in accordance with the schedule mentioned in paragraph 7, with the minimum methodology to be down blended on site under the supervision of the IAEA. The two parties also agreed to discuss the issue of enrichment and other mutually agreed matters related to the Islamic Republic of Iran's nuclear needs, based on a satisfactory framework being agreed upon in the final deal. The final deal will confirm the provisions of this paragraph. The United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran acknowledge the critical importance of the nuclear issues above mentioned. They expressed their intention to immediately address these issues in the negotiations in order to achieve agreement on them. So now I think we get to one of the core issues when it comes to that. And unsurprisingly, a lot of the architects of the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal that was signed under Obama in 2015, heavily criticized this MOU. Were they right to criticize it, Ellie? What's your point?
Maybe from their standpoint, they are right to because they they might argue, well, we already negotiated this. We already negotiated a sort of inspections regime that included IAEA oversight and various mechanisms, and they would argue that Iran was sticking to it. So from their standpoint, maybe I think that the jury is still out on this one. Me personally, my first instinct um, of course, to disbelieve that the Iranian regime is going to follow through here. They're going to have to um, give up so much. They're going to have to allow inspectors into all sites, including Pickaxe Mountain, which isn't mentioned enough. I think when it comes to assessing Iran's nuclear enrichment capabilities, this is a site that is built way underground, much deeper than Fordo is dug. Um, so I think the jury's still out on this one, but Look, I mean, there are so many. I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but there are so many voices in Iranian media uh, who are calling for the development of a nuclear weapon. I mean, if that's the case, and if it's true that the new supreme leader believes that, unlike his father, truly does believe that Iran needs to go for at least nuclear weapons capability, which is not necessarily the same thing as procuring or developing nuclear weapons, weaponization. Then I think we have a lot to be worried about. So I would just argue against the sort of Ben Rhodes of the world and the Pod Save America bros and all those folks, and we might they might be the topic of a future episode of stuff.
Yeah.
But they would say, well, we already negotiated something like this, and not only did we negotiate something like this, we didn't give up everything that the United States is giving up in the rest of the MOU. So maybe
I will say, with all the criticism I have on uh, when it comes to the JCPOA, I will say on that point they do have a point. Like, at least they had some mechanism, detailed process and limitations and restrictions on the development of nuclear weapon in terms of like enrichment and inspection and all that stuff. Something that I'm missing here, I just don't see it here. All we get is like a "trust me, bro" promise from the Islamic Republic. They reaffirm that it shall not procure or develop nuclear weapons. Okay, fine. I also reaffirm that I'm not going to develop nuclear weapons. And I have a better track record in keeping my word than the Islamic Republic. So I don't know.
well, you set the bar pretty low, but I would agree. I would agree. I love that, and I love that you used the word reaffirm. That's again, this is how you know the Iranians wrote this. Reaffirm.
Yeah,
We already said, like,
it's
okay,
their
so
own.
what about Operation Ahmad? Which supposedly ended in '03.
Yeah,
And also other steps that were taken by the regime to
yeah,
say uh, to keep to add to their freezer, from which they could draw in the future should they choose to develop nuclear weapons capability, weaponize and develop nuclear weapons capability. But yeah, I think that some of those critics there, they do have a point here. This is, I mean, is this ever going to be negotiated? Is this part of the MOU ever going to be negotiated?
I don't know.
Like negotiated with a and an agreement actually reached on it. I mean, I don't know.
I will. I do have to add. We have to be, fair, and it's probably not wasn't the intention of the Trump administration. They probably had no idea about this development. But this clause actually caused a lot of internal fraction within the regime, because you still have hardliners who refuse to even, negotiate and say anything remotely suggesting that they should stop enriching uranium and developing nuclear weapons. So you have those, and it's been very tense among different factions within the regime when it comes to this clause, even though it's indefensible clause to us, but they would still oppose it because it just the mention of the word like shall not procure or develop nuclear weapons bothers a lot the
That's true.
super hardline. I would say they're all hardliners, but the super hardliners within the Islamic Republic.
Yes, and it's true. And I read about this between Ahmad Vahidi, the new head of the IRGC, on one side, and on the other side,
Ghalibaf
and Araghchi, the Speaker of the Parliament and Foreign Minister, respectively. Although again, they're hardliners too. But no, I mean that. So let's say this is a concession by Vahidi's IRGC to the so-called political echelon of Iran. I hear you.
Okay, let's move on to the next point. Number 9. Okay. Number 9 and 10, I guess.
Mm.
Okay. Pending the final deal, the United States of America and Islamic Republic of Iran agree to maintain the status quo. The Islamic Republic of Iran will maintain the current status quo of its nuclear program, and the United States of America will not impose any new sanctions and will not deploy additional forces in the region. Okay.
I mean, the status quo. What is the status quo, and do we all view the status quo through the same lens?
Right. Right.
This might be intentionally vague.
Intentionally vague. Also, there's so many concessions that we've seen throughout the previous clauses that it's pretty insulting that you have this point of the Islamic Republic of Iran will maintain the current status quo of its nuclear program. So the US conceded so many points before that, but the status quo means like nothing will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, very problematic.
So the Iranians can still enrich uranium to 90%. I mean, is right? So is that the status quo?
That's what I understand from it.
Me too. So
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, and I need to sharpen my reading comprehension skills. But that's what I understand.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
Yeah, English is your native language, so tell me what you understand here. So I don't know.
As we've learned to stop from working with each other, or sometimes the Israelis have better English skills than Israelis have better English skills than some of our American colleagues. So
I think they just don't want to understand. I don't think they don't understand. I think it's intentional.
I think I know you might be talking about there.
Yes,
yes. But yeah, I mean, and not deploying additional forces to the region. I mean, so they can't send more American troops to air bases or naval bases. I mean, this is just. I think that to me, what the Iranians are trying to say here is we don't want any more troop buildups. We don't want any more amassing of forces in the region that could pose a threat to us. That's how I, in part, interpret this.
Yeah. Okay, that's the number 10. The United States of America undertakes that immediately upon the signing of the MOU and until the termination of sanctions, the U.S. Department of Treasury will issue waivers for the export of Iranian crude oil, petroleum products, and derivatives, and all associated services, including banking transactions, insurances, and transportations. This part was opposed quite significantly by Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury. Again, the US gets nothing in return and just removes sanctions.
Yeah, and is this, Asaf, the part that a lot of folks like Besson really get upset about, where you can actually take an American corporation can take U.S. dollars and use those dollars to pay for, Iranian petrochemical products. I mean, is that what this is saying here? If you know.
U.S. Department of the Treasury will issue waivers for the export of Iranian petroleum products, and
I think it means you can use U.S. dollars to buy Iranian oil and gas.
I don't know, but I think even at the least worst case scenario, or the best case scenario, I guess. Once again, the fact that they're getting waivers and removing sanctions without giving anything concrete in return is a problem. Yeah. We can see this thread throughout the last couple of clauses. And yeah, that's one of the problems that people like Scott Bessent, Marco Rubio, and other people in the administration had an issue with.
Yeah. Like you said, for nothing in return.
Yeah.
Maybe stuff the Iranians and maybe the White House just hopes that we don't read this far. So
yeah,
here we are.
It's very interesting how a few days before the official publishing of the MOU, reports came out and leaked some of the stuff. And JD Vance came out and was like, no, 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 don't believe the media. Don't believe the media. Don't believe the Iranian media. Don't believe the Israeli media. But it was exactly the same, almost word by word to those leaked reports. So, yeah, and it turned out to be as bad as people were afraid of.
Yeah, and in some cases worse. I mean, he is. There's a lot that we could say about him in this regard, in this context,
Right.
including what he said before the deal was actually. The MOU was actually made public.
Right. I think point 11 is just kind of repeating. It's just instead of the other sanctions, it's just talking about the unfreezing of assets and funds. So it's basically the same point, which again, I will give credit to the JCPOA, which at least it was only unfreezing of funds. And then you got like some restrictions on the nuclear program of Iran. And again, in this case, we don't get any serious concrete concession, so it's a problem.
Yeah.
Next point, the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran agreed that an executive mechanism will be established to monitor the successful implementation of this MOU and the future compliance of the final deal. Just vague language, doesn't mean anything.
It reminds me of some of the documents that I used to have to read when I was an unpaid intern at the UN.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Lots of words that have no substance, honestly.
Yeah, the UN is pretty good at it.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean it's quite a racket.
Yeah.
They've made quite a racket with that, and unfortunately, with not just benign documents, but also damaging actions. So that could be another episode, maybe.
Last 2 points. Again, quite procedural, but we'll read them anyways. After signing this MOU and subject to the beginning of the implementation of paragraphs 1, 4, 5, 10, and 11 of this MOU, and the continuing implementation of these measures, the United States of America and the Republic of Iran will start negotiating regarding the final deal exclusively on the other paragraphs. The final deal will be endorsed by the binding UNSC resolution. So this is just a procedural thing. It still has to pass the UNSC, and all of a sudden France became like a stumbling block for it.
Vive la France! Never thought I'd say that.
Yeah, from nowhere to the rescue.
Yeah.
But yeah. So my quick impression of this MOU, I will sum up with this once again.
2 thumbs down.
Yeah, 2 thumbs down. Unfortunately, I tried. I really, really tried, especially on the nuclear part, to find some silver lining. I just can't. Like the best case scenario is going back to, in some points, going back to in certain specific areas, going back to the pre-war, I guess, and which was not good enough still.
Right. Definitely not. I mean,
Yeah.
That status quo led to the new status quo.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I'm with you.
So how do you sum up this agreement, Ellie?
I'm going to try to say this without sounding like I'm using any kind of sensationalist rhetoric. But this is a document of surrender. This document is reflective of a U.S. administration's desperation for some kind of deal that would end, at the very least, high-intensity hostilities, as were recorded between February 28th and August, I believe, 8th or 9th. Sorry, April 8th or 9th, when the sort of temporary ceasefire was enacted.
Right.
And it also, this agreement just the fact that you and ISF, we keep mentioning that Iran is getting all of this for nothing, seemingly nothing, basically, underscores what a critical tool the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, or Iran's aggression towards shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, has been for this regime. This
Yeah.
is not the home run for America that the current vice president deems it to be. I mean, if I'm sitting in Tehran in one of those bunkers, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy. Despite all of the damage that Iran has taken, not only since the latest war, but also back in June and previously at the hands of the Israelis and the Americans. This is, as you called it, I believe, an abomination. It's an abomination for the United States, and for the region, Israel and the Gulf Arabs, and some of the Arab countries, other Arab countries too. And now, it seems, from today anyway, it seems that the Iranians are going to maintain this leverage over the Strait of Hormuz, over maritime shipping, over the global economy. And it's only going to encourage more aggression by state actors and non-state actors. So I believe that this MOU overall is bad for the free world.
So what would you say? So after the agreement, after they signed that MOU, the Trump administration said that, well, we were running out of oil, so we had to reach that quickly and reach this agreement quickly with them so we can reopen the Strait of Hormuz. What would you say to that claim? What would be your response?
Sure, and I've heard that claim too. Yes, there were oil and gas shortages, especially in developing countries, in Africa, in parts of Asia, including India. At the same time, you're the United States of America. You've got your own leverage. You don't concede in this way to the Islamic Republic of Iran. One of the former heads of CENTCOM, whose name escapes me at the moment, was interviewed on one of the Sunday morning talk shows before the MOU was signed, and he said, "We have plans to open the Strait of Hormuz.
Mm-hmm.
They're not fun plans to put into action, but we have plans. We've trained for them." He said, "We can do it." And this administration chose not to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yes, there were oil shortages, and yes, we all here in the United States, we saw our own gas prices going up at the pump for sure, over $4 across most of, if not all of the country at one point. But no, I mean, you don't just cave to a regime like this. I mean, what are your thoughts on this, Asaf?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The US has the most powerful military in the world. I'm certain that they're able to open by force the Strait of Hormuz. This is something even beyond the specific case and the oil crisis. I kind of alluded to it during the analysis and the of the different clauses about how it actually, in the broader picture, it undermines this like liberal world order or Western-led world order and the rule of law that bans any country from doing what Iran did. So only that is a justification to open it by force.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone like it's not just about the general, not about just the specific increase in oil prices that we experienced, which, by the way, over time they actually decreased a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Countries also, I know there's some usage of the oil reserves and stuff, which Biden also did, by the way, during the war with Ukraine. But countries also adjust. Like Ukraine adjusted, and the world oil supply chain that adjusted to the Ukraine-Russia war. the Gulf countries adjust to through removing oil through land, through Saudi Arabia, and then through the Red Sea. So um, I think some people, I don't want to be too harsh, but a little bit short-sighted and need to grow up a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, you enjoy, and I'm sure you're going to touch upon that point later on in our podcast at some point, but um, all this good life that people in the West and including in America, especially in America, have is thanks to American power. No other reason. American power that projection of power, actual power, that
Soft power in some cases.
soft power that produces these economic and trade opportunities around the world that flows back to America and maintains its very strong economy. On the strength of the dollar and all those things, which at some point we'll touch upon. But I think it has to be mentioned, and I think it's part of it. And uh, unfortunately, people just becoming less and less mature about this topic, especially the more younger generations. But I think I will stop here, you know, with that topic. And um, yeah, anything else to add about this?
About this particular topic, I mean, there's always more to say.
Yeah,
But
I do want to add before we wrap up
yeah,
one little thing. I don't want to end up with just doom and gloom. Um, as I said, I suspect a little bit that it's for the midterms, so we don't know what will happen, and I have a gut feeling that they will extend those 60 days, and it will be extend more and more. Nothing, both sides will delay and drag their feet, and maybe after the midterms we're going to see something a little bit different. Although, has to be mentioned that in the meantime, they're gonna reconstitute some of their capabilities, especially the missile programs and drones and that stuff, which is a problem. But it's possible that it's just delaying it for after the midterms. I think another, I guess, silver lining, maybe we can call it. There's another um, parallel channel within the administration, I would say, of the Rubio channel that tries to promote normalization and peace between Israel and some or more cooperation or reinforce the already existing Abraham Accords. That he can tap on the joint concerns between the Gulf countries and Israel to maybe promote some sort of better um, relations between all those countries, as we've seen with the agreement with Lebanon, which overall, to me, seems like a positive development in a positive direction, at least, and shows pretty capable statesmanship by Secretary Rubio compared to other people in the Trump administration. So I don't want to finish up with just doom and gloom, but yeah, that's my part. Ellie, do you have anything to add before we wrap up?
well, Asaf, I'm with you. Yeah, I also would prefer to end on a positive note and as you mentioned, tangible points of light that we can look to going forward. I would just say I think this was a really great conversation. I have
Yeah,
not had the chance yet, not only to talk about all the points of the MOU, but to really examine it and take it apart. And that's what we did today. So I think that this was a great first episode, and I'm looking forward to talking more about these issues and others. This is definitely an eventful time in U.S. history and world history. And I'm glad to be along for the ride with it with you on the show.
amazing. Yeah, I agreed. I really enjoyed it. As usual, we always have fun talking about those things, sometimes in a like a lighter way.
Hmm.
And I'm really looking forward to, exploring other topics that are on the news and are important to, um, you know, U.S., Israel, anti-Semitism,
Hmm.
geopolitics in general, maybe even religion. We'll get to that stuff. But yeah, I hope that those of you watching enjoyed our conversation, that it was informative, and you actually gained something out of it. And it's kind of funny to do that, but I'm going to be one of those guys. Don't forget to subscribe and like.
There you go.
And
Good job.
and have
You are
a
not one of those
happy,
guys.
yes, and have a happy 4th of July, all of you.
Yes, yes.
Have,
Happy and happy and meaningful 4th of July to everyone.
yes. Okay. Goodbye.
You will. Bye, Asaf.
Bye.